Good morning, everybody. I'm Katie Phillips, and I am the founder of the School of Self-Love, and I'm an intuitive and transformational coach. And it's my absolute honor to be hosting My Menopause, an interview series where I'm speaking with 19 experts and a few bonuses coming in the coming weeks, as it turns out, over this whole week, and I am loving every single second of it. I've designed the series as the student. I am the student here. I realized I was going through perimenopause recently, and I wanted to get really super clued up to make my experience of menopause really positive and powerful, and to kind of shift the thinking that menopause is the end of my life, to the menopause is actually the beginning of the second half of my life, and to get excited about it. And I am, and I've learned so much over the last couple of days, and I'm continuing to learn, and it's blowing my mind. And Jules has joined me here now. And Jules, welcome to the call.
Hi Katie.
Hi. Do you want to tell everybody where you are? Don't move your camera, because I know it will kind of disrupt things, but tell everybody where you are, because I was just saying to Jules before we started the call, I just want to go where she is and crawl in and just go fetal and stay there for a few days.
That's exactly what this place is about. So it's the Earth Heart Centre, the vision that I created 6 years ago. Well, I mean, I started it about 30 years ago, but birthed it physically. It's 200,000 acre forest. We're about a mile up a dirt track in a clearing in the woods, and we've got a purpose-built, dedicated centre for women's empowerment, women connecting, and it is like just one massive womb. And women just come here and do exactly that. They just curl up and they just feel so nourished by the nature here, and by the land, and by the spaces that we've created for women. And it's yeah, I mean, it holds me. It massively holds me. It's really, really nourishing.
Oh, I bet. It sounds gorgeous. And you said it's the last remaining ancient forest in the UK?
It's the last true remaining ancient, well, the largest true remaining ancient forest in the UK. So there's a lot of sort of pine plantations, what they would call tree farms. But this is actually, like an ancient woodland. So it does have trees that have been planted for farming, but it's got a real diversity in it. And there's been forest here since the 12th, well, probably further back from the 12th century, right back from the beginning of time, but it's maintaining a forest since the 12th century. So it's got some powerful trees here.
I really feel like you're channeling that energy through onto this call now, and I feel like we're held safe, almost womb-like right now. So thank you. I'm going to read out your bio just to introduce you to everybody on the call and those that are going to be watching the replay of this. So Jules Wingfield, with over 25 years experience supporting thousands of women to make profound shifts in their lives, Jules brings together a rare wealth of experience, wisdom, and skills, offering workshops for women in or approaching menopause as sacred rites of passage into deeper spiritual awakening, personal power, and sacred sexuality. And sexuality is a big piece around what we're going to be speaking about today. And I'm personally very excited. And in fact, you couldn't really make it up. So my partner doesn't have a clue who I'm interviewing today. He just knows that Katie's very busy at the minute interviewing lots of people, and she's loving it. But he said to me, we spoke on the phone this morning because he's away. And he said, darling, do you still feel sexy? Like, do you still feel sexual? He's so sweet. And I said, yeah, I do actually. He said, you're not going to lose that, are you? And you could just feel it. It was like, first of all, he didn't want me to lose my own sense of sensuality and sexuality, just feeling a sexual woman. And then I think the undertone was, is that going to affect us? So this is actually really beautifully timed. I'm really excited to hear your perspective on this, Jules.
Yeah.
Should we kick off with your story? I think sharing stories is so important. Are you happy to share your menopause story?
I absolutely, and I'm so excited just hearing that little dialogue between you and your partner, because that is just an archetypal dialogue that's going on between the men and the women, and I can't wait to speak to it.
Yeah, I knew it was perfect timing when he said it. I was like, you couldn't make that up. It's perfect timing.
Absolutely, absolutely not scripted.
Not at all.
So yeah, my menopausal journey. So I came from the sort of superwoman paradigm all my life. Just, you know, well, like I was saying, I visioned this thing that we have here, the Earth Heart Center, from about age 16. And, you know, I've just always had tons of energy and like big visions, and just sort of holding that vision, doing my thing, bringing my gift to the world, and really just feeling like there's no limit on what I can do. And it didn't even occur to me that sort of energy had a limit to it, because it just felt like I had so much. And then the last sort of 2 years before I had this big crash, I was running, you know, obviously I was running the workshops, the program's all like going really well, and I'm really busy, and I'm just feeling more and more tired. And, you know, in the breaks, going and having a little snooze, which normally I'd never do. I just want to talk to people in the breaks, and just feeling really exhausted after them, but still didn't make the connection, and was just like, no, I've just got to, you know, I'll go to my acupuncturist and I'll get him to just, you know, give me a hit of energy, and I'll just carry on. And you know, and he was sort of saying, well, I think maybe, you know, your body's changing. I was like, no, the fact that I've, you know, suddenly put on weight, no, all of this. And I started getting compassion fatigue. I was sitting in the workshops, and, you know, I started to feel like, oh God, I'm not interested in what's going on for you. And I was like, oh my, this is awful. You know, I cannot run workshops like this. And then one day I was sitting in the space here and was surrounded by forest, and it was at the end of the workshop, and I looked out of the windows, and there's this beech tree which I feel quite connected to, and I was just looking at the beech tree, and it was autumn, actually. It's like autumn of our life. And it was autumn, and the leaves were brown, and they were just sort of starting to fall. And I looked at the tree and I noticed that, and then suddenly the tree said to me, you're going to die this winter. And I just completely panicked. Like, number one, I'd never had a tree talk to me that clearly. I mean, I feel very connected to trees, and they do sort of bring me messages, but they're normally more subtle or abstract, but this was just sort of right there. And I panicked. I immediately thought, oh my God, I've got terminal cancer. You know, this is why I've been feeling so tired. I'm actually going to die. So I got in this complete panic inside, but, you know, finished the workshop, held it all together, very composed and all that. And then, so after that, I went and sat with the tree for a couple of days, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? What do you actually mean? And what became clear is it wasn't that I was actually going to die, but the way I had been operating, the way I had been bringing what I was doing to the world, the way I was using my energy, my relationship to my body, the way I was thinking, everything, all of that had to be composted. I could not, it's like my ecosystem, it's like I was honoring nature as this incredible ecosystem and understanding the cycles. And actually I was trying to defy autumn and winter in myself. And what became clear was I need to change the way I'm operating. I have to understand that I am cyclical, and that I have an autumn and a winter happening in my system, as well as a summer and a spring. So I argued with the tree a lot, because I was like, you don't understand. I've just birthed this project that costs £60,000 a year to break even. And there's all these people, and I'm a very successful workshop facilitator. I can't just stop what I'm doing. So anyway, I sat with the tree for, you know, a good long while, a few days. And what became clear was that I needed to take 13 moons out. And 13 moons, of course, is one full, you know, year cycle, and literally do nothing. So, you know, obviously I was arguing with this tree. I was like, that's just literally not possible. You know, my whole life's going to fall apart. Earth Heart will fall apart. It'll all be over. And of course, what became clear was, well, if you carry on like this, it's all over anyway, because you literally cannot carry on like this. And so I thought, okay, what's more important, my health and me being sustained enough to keep bringing what I'm bringing to the world? Or do I just sacrifice myself, have a couple more years left, and then be on some, you know, major illness train for the next 20 years? And it's like, oh, well, if I look at it like that, I'd rather be broke and well and doing what I do in some way than being ill for the next 20 years. So I took a huge risk, and I literally took a year, it took 13 moons out. I put a caravan down in the forest, made it like a space, like built this kind of den in the woods. And I just spent a year sitting in the forest, sitting by the fire, dropping really deep inside and just listening and feeling everything that was being asked to feel in me, of like the terror I felt to let go of the way I'd been operating, because I didn't know any other way. I was like, I don't know how to do stillness. I don't know how to go slow. I don't know how to not be everything to everyone, and just sort of, and it was quite a, it was quite a journey. Meanwhile, I had these visions of sort of brambles growing over the house, and, me turning into a crazy old lady with 50 cats, and everything sort of literally falling down and it being a ruin. And of course that didn't happen, because the process was about me surrendering, which is what the whole thing is about at this rite of passage, and trusting something even deeper in myself about what was wanting to come through me. And rather than it being about, I've got to bring this thing, it's like, how can I be in service to what is being asked of me? And because the whole thing of menopause in terms of a rite of passage is, it's asking us to step into our power, like another whole level, is, can I step into my power this next level? Of course, my inner 4-year-old was going, absolutely no way, this is crazy, you don't know what you're doing, you're a complete charlatan, and all of that. But actually, I started to feel this quality of power that was very different to the power I'd had before, which was very fiery, very Leo, very out there in the world, come on, let's do this thing, to a much more subtle inner fire of just clarity of knowing in my being, and a trust that the more I can let go, the more can come through me. And of course, my mind couldn't get a hold of that, but my womb was just on fire, and kind of just with this whole thing. And I was just like, okay, let go, just keep letting go. And I came out the other end, and things have just been incredible since then, and I'm still managing my energy. I've still had to, you've had some amazing speakers on looking at health, and I had to go on a major health program. And, and I'm still on it. I have to really take care of my body. But the symptoms, if you like, of my menopause, I didn't want to just sort of try and get rid of them with things, because I felt like they were trying to show me something. Like the tiredness was trying to show me something about how I was operating that wasn't in alignment, and how my hormones were changing because of my mind, because of my mental state was just so not in alignment. That then created a whole hormonal imbalance in my system. So it was like, can I listen to this? Can I do enough to make sure that I'm not just making my health really bad, but not mask the symptoms, so that I don't get the gifts, the gold that's in the symptoms, that's pointing to what is wanting to be looked at? Because of course the time of the menopause in the life arc of woman is exactly the same as the premenstrual time in the month arc of the menstrual cycle. So in the premenstrual is almost like the autumn of the monthly cycle when you're preparing to bleed. And the menarche in the life arc of woman is the autumn of her life. And it is like one mother of a premenstrual, like your last big premenstrual. And any work that hasn't been done, it's like, here it is. Are you going to do it? Because you're preparing to step into holy space. You're preparing to step into a place where you're going to be even more in your power, and you need to be responsible with this power. You need this power to be in service to love, to be in service to the transformation of women. And whatever hasn't been dealt with in your psyche, in your traumas, in your abuse history, or whatever it is going to come back at this time and say, you've still got a chance to do the work. So in that way, it's like our symptoms are trying to show us something. So to mask them can mean we miss the gold, like we miss the teachings that are there.
Oh my God, Jules, I'm so glad I've met you. I'm so glad I've met you. I'm so glad you're here. This is what you've just shared is so powerful and so true. I've got tears in my eyes. My body it just resonates. Like, this is just the truth.
Mm.
And you're so brave for listening to it. You're so brave, because I'm sure a lot of women, and me included, have this sense that, and I relate so much to what you're saying. So I feel like my whole career is going through a breakdown at the moment. Like it's going through some kind of breakdown to breakthrough. It's shifting. There's something within me that's shifting. I feel like I'm in the autumn of my life too. And I feel like I need to learn how to do things different. And it's hugely challenging because, you know, you've done life one way. Well, actually, I have managed to shift how I do life to come to be doing the work I'm doing now. But now I need to shift again. I feel it in my bones. And I don't have the answers yet. But I feel, and it's coinciding with perimenopause. So I really understand. But you're so brave to really listen to yourself and to hear that guidance and to take the year out. I mean, that's unbelievable.
It feels, because it's a death, you know, the process of menopause is like a death and a rebirth. In Chinese culture, they call it a second spring.
Right.
So it's the third rite of passage in a woman's life. So there's 4 in total. So birth obviously being the first rite of passage, menarche being the second rite of passage, the initiation into her power, the beginning of her journey into her power. And of course, had she had these young girls, had we been held in the culture, in the tribe, in the indigenous teachings, in the village, we would have been guided about how to use our power, but we weren't. So of course the teenagers are all going all over the shop. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how to be with this power. And then you go through that, and then the summer of your life, you're practicing your power. And then you come to menopause, which is the third rite of passage, where you're being asked to let your power be in service to the greater rather than in service to yourself. And then, of course, the fourth rite of passage is your death. So this time, this quadrant of menopause is such a potent time. And of course, if we look at the patriarchal system, there's no surprise that they are going to try to convince women that at the time where a woman has got a gateway to step into her power at a whole nother level, they're going to try and say, no, this is when it's all over. Because, of course, the whole patriarchal system is about fear of the feminine. Yeah. So you've got to do that, you know, otherwise you're going to have all these women in their power. And it's like in the patriarchal system, we can't have that. That's not going to work. So, you know, and your partner there saying to you, oh, honey, are you still going to be interested in sex and all of that? It's like, this is why I want to talk about the sex, because it's so important. It's all linked to the power. It is all linked to the power. And in each of these quadrants, there's teachings, the sacred teachings. And actually, the sacred teachings for the autumn quadrant of a woman's life is sexuality. And women often go, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't that live in the spring of my life or the summer of my life when I'm trying to, procreate children or something? But actually, it's because here we're moving past the hormonal paradigm of procreation, of the ovulatory menstruation cycle. So now sexuality starts to become linked with spirituality. It becomes a holy space. Right. And that's why the men are terrified, because they know to meet a woman in this place, there cannot be in any distortion. They have to come like they're coming into a temple space. So yeah, I'm jumping ahead a bit there. Let's just go back to where we were.
No, I love it. No, it's perfect, because when we were speaking the other day, you said that sex and spirit are inseparable for a woman. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that.
Definitely. Can you hear the dog in the background?
Just, yes.
Yeah, I think the postman has just arrived.
My cat is at the door, at my office door, meowing right now. She's like, I want into this conversation.
Yeah. So apologies for the dog. I don't know where my partner is, but she's having fun with the postman. So this connection between sexuality and spirituality in the menopause.
Yes.
So if we look at the life arc of woman and the different phases of her life and what sexuality means at those different times, there's different qualities. So women are often surprised when I say our sexuality is cyclical. But actually, if we are cyclical beings, why wouldn't our sexuality be cyclical too? Why would that be any different? And why would it be that if we feel different at different times of the month when we're a menstruating woman, why wouldn't we feel different around our sexuality? So at different points in our life, our sexuality becomes about different things. When we're a maiden, when we're in the spring of our life, it's kind of about exploration and discovery. Like, who am I as a sexual woman? Like, what do I like? What do I don't like? Do I like boys? Do I like girls? Do I, how does my sexuality want to express itself? And it's a kind of process of exploration and discovery. And then, obviously in the summer of our life, it's more about creativity and obviously the possibility to create life. And not every woman chooses that. And I think there's something really important here, because I think in the patriarchal system, there's a real stigma if you don't choose to use your creativity to birth children through your womb. But I mean, there's many things we can birth through our womb. And our life is literally about birthing the world through our womb, birthing ourselves through our womb. How can I bring myself fully? How can I bring my gifts? How can I be all that I am in my, in my brilliance? And then once the ovulatory cycle starts to change and we've no longer driven by the hormonal cycle, now there's space for something else. And this is where in the menopause, and we feel that tip from the summer to the autumn, and the menopause starts knocking on the door. And it's like, whereas when we were younger in our life, all of us as women, if I just speak heterosexually for a moment, just so we can speak to that branch of everything, it's like for all of us women, I think there's very few of us that are being met sexually deeply long, that we almost can't even recognize, because it's never happened, but we sort of have a sense that there's something else, there's something more, it could be more than this, but I don't know what it is, so what's the point in longing for it? But there's a something that always is there. But when we're younger in our life, I think, we have moments of it, we have amazing maybe periods of that, times of that, but there's always this ache, this longing. But we kind of go, well, yeah, I would like more, but it's okay as it is. It is lovely, and I do love him, and I do love what we do, and it's really tender, and there are times when it's amazing and all of that. So we kind of settle for what's there. We hit the menopause, and it's like, I would rather have nothing than mediocre sex. And that's the difference. That's what changes in our psyche. Whereas before, there are other things driving our desire for intimacy. Like, it might be that we want to procreate. It might be that we're just hungry for love, for fun, for creativity, for just connection and warmth, and just that sort of, closeness with someone. Whereas a menopausal woman, because she's moving into this holy space, because she's feeling the alignment, like the purity of herself, like a deeper resonance with her power, it's like anything that isn't in service to me dropping into the depth of who I am as a woman on every level, it's got to go. It's got to be composted. So the joke becomes, in the patriarchal system, in our culture, when you get to menopause, you don't want to have sex anymore. It's like, I'm off sex. Most people say, I'm just not interested in sex anymore. I don't want to know. Now, my question is that really true? Or is it that you just won't settle for mediocre anymore? And if I said to you, tell me what is your absolute vision of what amazing sex would mean to you right now, today, like, let's lay it out here, it starts like this, and then this, if you could really have it exactly as you want it, would you still be saying, I'm not interested in sex anymore? Possibly not.
Yeah, and
it's so far out of our brief. It's like, what do you mean? I know that that's not possible, so what's the flipping point in even dreaming about it?
Well, there's that, and there's also, I think menopause is, as you've very eloquently said, it's a time for us to go within and really get to know who we are, and a lot of women aren't in the practice of even asking themselves, what do I want? What do I even desire? And when you said that to me, then I'm not going to lie, and I'm like, this is my expertise. I guide women in this, but it's like, what do I really want? That's a really good question. Like, if I could write the vision of what the most awesome sexual experience was for me, I actually couldn't answer you straight away right now. I'd have to go away and think about it.
Exactly. And that's exactly it, because we spent a lifetime of accepting mediocre, because it's so painful to feel the pain of having not been met in what it is to be sacred and sexual for a woman, like deeply to connect with that. And it's in all of us as women. But because, you know, it's so rare that it happens, we just switch off to that part of ourselves. And like you say, we're like, well, I don't know what that looks like. I haven't got the first clue. You know, I haven't got a clue. But when I work with women and we start to unpack that a little bit, and I go, well, what about if it was like this? What about if this were to happen in this moment? And she say, oh yeah, that would be really nice. I'd feel really relaxed actually if that happened. And okay, so what if he said this to you, or what if he did that to you, or what if he was in himself in this particular, yeah, that would be different. But I mean, he never will be, because he's not like that, you know. And it's kind of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's easier to just go, not interested. I'm just going to switch off that part of myself and, you know, get on with my life. And there are other things that nurture me. So of course, there are other ways our sexuality can be expressed. It's not just in sex with a partner. It's, you know, our sexual energy is our creativity. And once we're out of the hormonal cycle of procreation, our creativity now becomes a spiritual expression. It now becomes connected to all that is sacred. So in a way, it's like a menopausal and most menopausal woman, her sexual energy is potent, but not in the way that we would kind of archetypally or stereotypically sort of say a woman was potently sexual, i.e., you know, she's walking down the road, she's got it all going on, and she's like, you know, I'm so sexy. It's not like that, you know. It's like a depth of her power. Yeah. And men are terrified of this. Of course they are, because, and this is why what often happens, you know, if we look at, say, the kind of the traditional patriarchal marriage, we get married in our maiden years, you know, we spend 20, 30, 40 years in service to the family, we give the children and we take care of the husband and we sort of do our duty in the bedroom, and it's okay, it's not great, but I love him, and he, you know, all of this. She hits the menopause and she's like, what the fuck am I doing? What about me? You know, what do I want? And she leaves the marriage. She's like, fuck this. I'm not going to be slave anymore to all of them. What about me? And I don't want sex with him, and I haven't wanted sex with him for years. You know, la, la, la.
Divorce does tend to coincide a lot with menopause, I'm discovering.
Absolutely. And because she's had to shut down her sexuality because it's so painful to not be met in this deep womb connected way, it's like opening up again is difficult. And then on the other side of that, the husband sometimes of this kind of marriage, they've been together for years and it's like it is, he starts feeling her menopause and he's like, oh, I want the maiden again. Because he can feel that she's coming into her power, and now he's terrified. He's like, oh dear, because I am going to have to up my game. I'm going to have to come present. I'm going to have to do the work on myself. I'm going to have to show up and find the king in me to meet her in her power. And if he doesn't want to do that work, what's he going to do? He's going to go off and find a maiden who isn't threatening. You know, that can kind of help him to sort of rekindle his youth and not have to feel where he is in himself and the pain of where he is in himself because he hasn't done the work. And so he will often leave or go and have an affair. And the woman's thinking, geez, I've just given you 30 years of my life. And now, you know, you want to. So then she's busy with the plastic surgery and trying to make herself a maiden again. And maybe he'll be interested. And it's so painful. It's so painful that we go to this place of trying to recapture the maiden in us as that being the only thing that's attractive, when actually what we put out there is what we're going to attract. If we let ourselves as menopausal women really feel the power of our beauty and the power of our sexuality, which is now an inequality, we're going to attract a man who's saying, I'm up for that. That's what I want. I want, you know, this is what Tantra is trying to point to. Tantra is so misunderstood in this country, and there's very little genuine tantra going on, but what it's trying to point to is the understanding that at this point in the woman's life arc, or in the premenstrual of the monthly cycle, it's what I call the truth zone. It's the no bullshit zone. And the possibility for a man to be enlightened through the gateway of her womb, through the gateway of sexuality and intimacy. But in order for that to happen, he has to be willing to surrender his ego, like really surrender, not submit, but surrender and trust her that she's not going to castrate him, that she's not going to kill him, that she's not going to just shame him and, you know, all of that stuff that he's terrified of, but actually surrender to her power. They both step through and they both find the connection. But of course, if he doesn't want to do that, he's going to go to the maiden. And for us as women, for us to call the men in that way, we have to do our work. And what we tend to do is to call them from our wounded masculine self, you know, from all the hurt and the pain in us about what's gone on. And then we like, like give them a really hard time. And then we wonder why they don't want to step in.
Yeah.
So we got to call them from our love. And it's like a fierce love, like a really, really fierce, deep love that says, I want your king and nothing less. And if you can't bring me your king, that's okay. But I'd rather be with myself, or I'd rather express my creativity in other ways and my sexuality through other expressions, kind of thing. Yeah, does that make sense?
You just answered. It's literally, as you're speaking, I need to ask her that, and then you just kept answering all the questions that were coming to my mind. It makes so much sense. I was really interested to understand as you were speaking, but you did answer it around, well, how can we step into our power and not have men, or what do men need to do to not be frightened of us, and what needs to shift? And you've answered that really well. There's an opportunity for them to step into their king, their king self, you know, their higher self as well. Yeah. It's just, I love the way you said that. I definitely am going to watch this back. That's brilliant. Let's just bring it right back down to like nuts and bolts of what you're seeing in women that are coming to you. Like, because you do a lot of work around sexuality with menopausal women. So what are the everyday woman, she's coming to you, what are her fears, concerns? Like,
around sexuality is, I don't feel like I want sex. I've lost my kind of sexual drive. My vagina's dry and it actually hurts, you know, and just not feeling sort of wet and juicy. And I don't want to have sex with my partner. You know, it just, I kind of might want to be lovers with someone, but there's no men out there that really do it for me, you know, and I don't even know really what it is I want, but I know it's not that. They know what they don't want, but they don't know how to create what they do want. So the thing about, if we just go right down to the nuts and bolts, the kind of what's happening in our bodies and the sort of symptoms of like dry vaginas and low libido and all of that, I come back to this thing, and I've seen it in the women that I work with, and I've seen this transformation. This is not an abstract idea. When women in the menopause start to get in touch with what they really want in sexuality and what this power is really about, and they start working with it, that changes the hormonal structure in the brain. That then starts to change everything in the body, and lo and behold, suddenly they're getting wet and juicy again. And lo and behold, their desire is coming back because they are choosing to do the work. And of course, at the time of menopause, because it's a sort of big premenstrual, like I was saying before, whatever hasn't been dealt with will come back to be looked at. And often, if women have had a history of sexual abuse or trauma, or even very subtle, like I would call trauma as in having that mediocre sex that you didn't really want, but it kind of, I wasn't against it, but it just sort of wasn't for it. You know, that override that we do, a very subtle override, that all has like a sort of backlog to it. And at this time, all of that comes to the surface to be looked at and to say, okay, am I willing to honor myself at the deepest level? And when I can do that, of course, I'm going to know better how to be honored by someone else, when to say yes, when to say no, how to create what I want, how to drop deeper into myself, how to open and call in the kind of lover that I want that will honor me in the way that I'm connected with my power. So it really is a case of shifting the psyche, doing the trauma work in the body, looking at what's happening in the womb. It's like the womb is really the teacher here. The womb is going to show us everything. That's the point. I'm not the teacher. My womb is the teacher. Each of our wombs is the thing that is pointing us to what wants to be looked at. And it is that simple.
Oh, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I really am a big believer in the mind-body connection. And I love that I love this idea of doing the work, doing the healing past trauma or shame or anything around your sexuality, around your body, and how that can reignite your libido.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that as a theory. I have seen it with women countless times. It is just so interesting, and each time I see it, it kind of just roots me deeper in the belief of the work that we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, like, I know for most women, again, I'll kind of blanket it, but usually when we're having a period, when we're ovulating, that's when we often have a spike in our libido, isn't it? Because that's when our body thinks, come on, this is, I can get pregnant now. So we have a bit of a spike in wanting to have sex.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's risky to kind of sort of generalize in that way, because actually in my experience of working with women in their cycle over decades, each woman is really quite different actually. And yes, there is a certain kind of libido, a certain quality of libido that arises around that time. But it doesn't mean, like some women say to me, oh my God, I am most in touch with my sexuality when I'm on my bleed.
Right.
Actually, you know, and other women might say, oh, in the spring when I'm like pre-ovulatory, that's when I feel most sort of confident in myself. So it's not so much how high our sexual energy is at different times, but it's the quality of it. It's what, you know, like say in the pre-ovulatory phase, sometimes I've heard a lot of women say, oh, in the pre-ovulatory phase, you know, I'm happy to have that sort of late night fumble, you know, it's not really that connected, but it just kind of feels all right. And, you know, a bit of an orgasm maybe, and a bit of a cuddle, you know, but in the premenstrual time of the month, you try and do that and you just want, you know, or he's like, oh, let's just have a little fumble. And you're like, what? You're not looking to me in the eyes. Just like, how could you be so unconscious? Because the quality is different. It's like what's happening, because we're cyclical, and because all of these different, you know, we are like the seasons. It's like we are like the weather. It's constantly changing. Yeah. So but in the autumn, or in the menopause, or in the premenstrual, the sexuality is linked to spirituality, and that's the thing. That's the key here, that sex starts to become a holy space. And it doesn't mean that we've never can experience sex as a holy thing in our younger life, because we can experience it in the premenstrual, but it's most potent here. Because the veils between worlds are starting to thin as we enter the bleed time and we step through into the other world. We leave this world and enter the world of spirit. It's like it's the same with sex. Sex and spirit start to feel the call, you know, to transcend beyond something that's just a good release, or soothing insecurity, or wild fun, you know, that kind of thing, to something really holy and something that expands us, like our womb kind of expands into the cosmos. Because there's lots of different qualities to our sexual energy. There's gateways that move us from, you know, the clitoris into the womb, through the cervix, through the G-spot. Those are all different qualities of energy and sexual arousal. And they fit also in this. I've created a mat called Woundala, which is the mat to all of this. You can see it on my website. I think it's on one of the pages. And so it's talking about these layers, these gateways of opening. So in the menopause and postmenopause, it's like, can we open to the deepest part of our womb consciousness, so that when our energy is opening, we are literally expanding with the cosmos. That feeling that something bigger than me, that I'm going beyond my grasping for something from my human self. I don't know if, does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it's a quite big concept. So it does.
It is.
It's like it's a whole shift in perception, isn't it? And it's so exciting. And I love that you're introducing this work here on the call. It's amazing. When we stop bleeding then and we're not having our cycles, I mean, because I thought, and you tell me rightly or wrongly, I thought it was the hormones associated with our periods that gave us our libido. So when that stops, where does our libido come from? Or is it more of a spiritual piece?
I mean, where does our, where, for me, that question is really deep, because we could talk about it at the level of hormones. We could talk about it at the level of our yearning for love, our yearning to feel secure. We could talk about it at the level of spirituality, but ultimately, as the feminine, as women, I feel like our sexual energy is the mystery. It is the mystery. And to answer where does it come from is such a vast question. It's like saying, where do the stars come from? It's so vast. And it's like science always wants to reduce it to like hormones and to physical. Well, this is happening and you touch that and that means that's happening and that sends a neurological pathway to there. And that's all true at one level. But I think there's something that's beyond that, way beyond that as women we can feel it, but we can't articulate it, and often we can't touch it. But we do have a sense that there's something more. Like most of us are like, I know there's something more. I feel there's something more, but I haven't got a clue what it is or how to get to it. But I do yearn for it if I let myself.
What would you say to a woman? And please, okay, I'm going to ask the question. It's a personal question for me, but I think most women want to know. I'm in perimenopause. I haven't lost my libido yet, but I'm scared I'm going to. I don't want to be that woman that says to her partner, I don't feel like having sex with you. I don't want to be her, and I like my sexual self, and I don't want to lose her. So what would you say to me?
I would say that every woman is different, and it's not definite that you'll lose your libido. I haven't lost my libido. I didn't lose my libido, and I don't feel like I'm going to lose it. If you do lose your libido and you are with a good partner who is up for walking with you through this pathway, and already the feeling that he is willing to walk with you, you're already going to feel different about your libido. Because if you say, oh, I kind of lost my libido, and he sort of goes a bit sulky or a bit sort of, oh, yeah, great, or you start to feel the insecurity, like, oh, he's going to go off and look for someone else, all of that stuff. Whereas if when you say that, he's just fully present with you and he's like, I'm with you, let's just be intimate, let's see what happens, I'm really cool with it, suddenly you feel relaxed. Is that true?
It's so true. And even him asking me the question this morning and his genuine interest in wanting to know, do I feel sexual? And he was very clear. He said, please, no, it's not about do you want to have sex with me, it's do you feel sexy in yourself? And the fact that he could ask me that really opened me up. I'm like, can you come home now?
Yeah, because there isn't this sort of old-fashioned pressure, like if you're not going to put out, I'm going to start looking elsewhere. But actually, what does sexual intimacy look like between us now? Like, he's interested, what does it look like now? And for most women, the absence of pressure and full presence of your lover there is stage one of her feeling like she can open to her energy. If there's any kind of pressure, any kind of idea that she should be a certain way or feel a certain thing or be a certain thing, shut down. Everything just shuts down.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it's necessary for a woman to lose her libido. There may be a phase where she loses it because of what I was saying previously. If there's a backlog of having overridden herself and having sex that she didn't really enjoy, or abuse far back in the history that hasn't been fully resolved, that will all rise up and there will be a massive shutdown because her womb is trying to say, lady, we need to look at this, we need to do it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a shutdown, but if she's willing to meet that with her love, with her, desire to really heal and love herself and care for herself and put herself at the center of her life and all of that, then there's no reason why it shouldn't come back. And I've spoken to many, many, many postmenopausal women who just say sex is better than it ever was.
That's so encouraging. I know there's going to be so many people watching going, yay.
Really, really, I think if you're willing to do the work on yourself, if you're lucky enough to have a partner who will walk with you through it, I think those are really good foundation blocks.
Yeah, it really feels to me like it's a call for deeper intimacy. You know, finally, we all talk about intimacy, but it really is. It's like, come on, this is really the time to explore what intimacy truly means, and it's so much more than just like physical sex.
Exactly. Like, really, how can we really open here? Like, really open to the holy space, you know? And it's exciting. I mean, wow, how exciting is that? You know?
So exciting. I think it's so exciting as well, because I really do feel that we women lead the way with men. We really shine our light, and they have the choice to follow or not. And we really have the power to inspire them and have them step up into the men that they're meant to be as well. We're not meant to be frightening a woman in her.
No, it doesn't work to call the men from our angry, hurt, wounded place, you know, why aren't you da 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 da, you know, they just collapse, or they go, oh fuck her, I'll go and find someone else who's more compliant. You know, we really do have to call them from this deep, you know, our power is our vulnerability. When I talk about this power, what do I actually mean? It's the power to trust our deep feminine self, to compost the masculine in us, not lose it altogether, because there's plenty of ways in our life we need it, but to know that we can drop deeper into this feminine power and really, really let ourselves flow with that. That's really what it's about. And if we can bring that to intimacy, you know, I did a talk last summer. It was about 500 people at this Mind, Body, Spirit fair, and we let the men come in. It was a talk about menopause, and then the men were allowed to come. And they were all like really scared. And by the men, there was one man stood up. It was beautiful, and he said, he was like in his 30s. He said, I want a menopausal lover. After I've heard your talk, I want a menopausal lover, because I want nothing less than awakening. And I recognize now how I'm going to get that. And of course, all these menopausal women were all like, yeah, we're in.
Really, my younger man.
He got mobbed.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, we've got a question here, and I didn't actually say at the beginning, if you are on Zoom and you'd like to ask a question, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So please go ahead and write in your questions. If you're on Facebook, by all means, write your questions in the feed, and Jules, I'm sure when she has time, will go in there and answer them for you, but we won't.
I am about to go away and work for 6 days, so I would do it when I come back, just so you know.
Okay, that's all right. After that. Okay, so Jean has asked, I totally understand, Jules. I gave up a pressured job to take time out and deal with the symptoms. It was a year to concentrate on diet and exercise. And I'm just accepting the new me and starting up a business now with my husband. Brilliant. How can I be sure that my creativity will be satisfied with the business? I would like to connect again sexually with my husband.
Well, hopefully, I mean, in what I've been saying about, so it sounds like you've done a lot with diet and exercise and kind of health, which is really the bottom line. We have to start there. So now we're looking at that health, if you like, emotional health, mental health, spiritual health and well-being. It's like looking at, you know, is there anything from my past that is asking for my attention? You know, what is wanting to happen in my womb, in my body? What am I longing for? And to give that as much attention now as you have been your health and your diet and taking rest and all of that. It's kind of the same principle applied to the different areas.
Great answer. Brilliant. I hope that's helpful, Jean. We have another question. This is a really great question. How do lesbian relationships differ? Can you speak to that?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I have been bisexual in my life, and when I was younger, I was in relationship with women. I haven't been for a long time, so I'm not sure if I could speak to that with any kind of authority. but I can't see there being any differences, really. I mean, I've spoken a lot to the heterosexual paradigm today, but given that we all have masculine and feminine inside us, I imagine the same things are going to arise in what wants to be looked at here. What in my history wants tending to? What am I wanting from my lover? How do we meet in this space? How do we go into the holy space? How do we transform where we're at and drop deeper into ourselves? I can't imagine that it's that much different, to be honest.
I think because for the menopausal woman, we've got masculine and feminine dynamics that need healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And masculine has his own, the man in the relationship has his own masculine feminine dynamics to heal, to come together.
I mean, our role is to look at what I call the shadow masculine and the healthy masculine, and the shadow feminine and the healthy feminine. And we're looking to operate from our healthy inner feminine and masculine. So whether it's a heterosexual relationship or a lesbian relationship, we're still looking to transform any shadow masculine in us, any shadow feminine in us, so that we can truly meet in those polarities. Whoever's holding whichever polarity doesn't really matter, but it's the polarity that creates the potency. In a sexual spark together, one of you in each moment needs to be willing to surrender one or the other for it to be really, really potent. That never changes, really, I think, through our whole life. I think that principle is the foundation principle of good sex, sacred sexuality.
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. And
it's a great question. Yes, I have primarily spoken to the kind of heterosexual paradigm today, so I'm aware of that. I don't want same-sex people to feel excluded in some way. That's not really, it's not it.
Totally. Another question, how do I best prepare my partner for this transition so that he can meet me in his king archetype? That's a beautiful question. Was that meant to
I think just keep open. How do I best prepare my partner? Yeah, I mean, if he's asking, presuming it's a male partner, I don't know, hasn't said, keeping the dialogue open, like sharing as much as you can, trying to break the stereotypes, because especially for the men, they're coming from this stereotype stuff. She's going to be like this, she's going to be like that, it's da 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 da. So it's like reading good information about it. On the couples work we do here, often the menopausal women will bring their partners so that we can really look at all of that and say, what does this look like now? So I think communicating is really, really the key. Breaking some of the myths, breaking some of the kind of ideas and beliefs and banter that goes around the workspace, the jokes that go around, and just trying to start to see it for what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I really think communication is the key. Like, I know my partner and we've got a fantastic relationship. We're very communicative, as this morning's conversation demonstrates.
Yeah.
But I feel like that just blasts any barriers, which has me as a woman feel open to just go through what I need to go through. And I know he's going to support me. But the more we communicate, it's just so healing.
Yeah.
It just kind of
I think what's coming to me as well in the preparation is the more that we as women can know what we want, what we long for, and what we need, the more likely our partners are going to be able to meet us. If we say, well, I know I don't want it like this, and they go, well, what do you want? I don't know. It's a bit of a setup. Poor loves, how are they going to... How do they stand themselves?
How do I know what you want?
and then we get all like, and you can't meet me.
Yeah.
It's like, so really it comes back to the whole thing is about self-care. How can I put myself at the center of my life? How do I get in touch with what my longing is, and how do I take responsibility for that and invite my partner into this space from a place of this deep power?
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah. Communication, key. Another question. I'm having sexual fantasies about women on a vague level for the first time. Is this normal?
Brilliant. Yeah, because what I was saying at the beginning, in the Chinese culture, they call this a second spring. So because we're in this cyclical death and rebirth, it's like when we go through the menopause and we're rebirthing ourselves, it's like everything is back in the maiden. Well, who am I now? It's like a complete redefining who I am. Everything has been composted and we start again. Who am I? What do I like? What do I want? What turns me on? And really, let's explore it. I mean, I just think explore it. Find out who you are. Find out what you want. Some women choose to connect in same-sex partners, go with women from a place of feeling so disappointed with their experience of sex with men for their whole life. They're like, you know what? I think I'll just be with a woman because she'll get me and she'll understand it and it's not painful. So that's one level that has often gone on. But actually, in what I was saying before, why not? I mean, who's to say you have to be with a man just because you always have been?
Yeah.
Your sexuality is your sexuality. It's like, own it, enjoy it, be it. And if you're not in your bliss, then, you know, what do you need to do to get into your bliss?
Totally. And I know the interview today, there's going to be a lot of conversation about this is a time to reimagine yourself, redefine yourself, and own that, you know, like you don't have to be the same woman all your life, you know, because we're always evolving.
And to, you know, I think one of the biggest hurts that I see, that I just, is when I see menopausal women trying to look like maidens. Like when we go and we have the kind of the thing and we try to kind of, and it's like, no, let's honor the beauty that we are in the life phase that we are. Because when we try to step outside of that, we're giving away our power and we're giving away our beauty. And it's kind of like, can we feel the sexiness of what it's like to be a 53-year-old woman? Can we feel the beauty of what that is like as a woman in her 50s or late 40s? You know, we're not maidens, and let's honor where we actually are and model something around our power. You know, it's like our beauty shines from inside. Yeah. It really, really does.
It does. I completely agree with you. That's another.
It's gonna be a massive paradigm shift culture to make this shift. You know, it really is going to be huge. And we're right here. We're doing it. We're almost like the first generation who's reclaimed menopause now.
Yeah, you know, yeah. It's about time.
Yeah. And you know, I run a menopause workshop here every year called Autumn Queen, and the women, it's like they just can't get here fast enough. They're so hungry for this knowledge, for the understanding, to sort of shift the paradigm, to have the affirmation that there's nothing wrong with them, and actually there's everything happening that's right, and it's just about meeting it and going deeper and deeper.
Yeah, you broke up slightly when you said the name of the program. What was it called?
Autumn Queen. Autumn Queen is the workshop that's specifically for menopausal women.
I love it. And can you share you've got a bit of a gift today. Can you explain what your guided meditation on menopausal sexuality is? I'm so intrigued.
Yes. So there's a guided meditation. I think it's 50 minutes long, and it's very, very simple guided meditation for you to go inside, connect with your womb wisdom, and you can ask a question about your sexuality and receive answers from this deep place of knowing inside yourself. So it's a way to access your womb consciousness at the purest level, and she's gonna like help you, guide you in what you need to discover to take the next step.
I'm totally doing it. I can't wait. I love that. I will make sure I share that link underneath this video when it goes into YouTube later today, and I will put it in the Facebook feed as well, so you guys have that. I think we need to wrap up now, Jules. We've been speaking for a glorious hour, and I could talk to you all day. Is there one final message, words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
Gosh, I mean, we have so only scratched the surface today.
No, I feel that.
This is like this, but hopefully there's just something, a little nugget of something that you can take away, plant as a seed, and let it grow. I mean, if there's one message, it's like, just try and trust in the process, because the process is one of alchemy. The process is one of composting. The process is one of surrender and asking for such deep trust in yourself. But it's like, it's about really putting yourself at the center of your journey, at the center of your life, and listening to her, loving yourself at an even deeper level than you've been trying to do before, and getting really excited about this next phase of your life. Because it is exciting. It's amazing. It is amazing. Yeah.
I've got tears in my eyes. I feel like I need to have a good cry after hearing you say that. Thank you. So special and powerful, and I really hope that, well, I know that everyone's going to get so much from this today. Thank you, Jules. I
You're welcome.
really enjoyed connecting with you, and I know this is just, we are literally scratching the surface. People just need to go to your workshops, go out to the ancient forest and hang out with you, and be transformed.
Come to the forest. Come to the forest. There's loads of workshops, different programs. Look at the website. It's all there. JulesWingfield.com, and get in touch.
Wonderful. Keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. Love you lots. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie. Bye-bye.
See you later.